such as Siemens, Duncan's Group, the Bombay Stock Exchange, to name but a few. He's currently working as a director for human resources at the Hinduja Hospital, Mumbai. And his interests include operations, behavioral psychology, so watch your movements today, yes, and industrial relations. He's also a visiting lecturer at the University of Mumbai, and we're really, really pleased that he's available to moderate this next panel discussion. Please welcome Neil Sequeira. Thank you.
Well, a very good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon.
I don't think even if Sigmund Freud would have been here, he would be able to stop you guys from falling asleep. I see some people are still eating, oh God. Peace. I and my friends who are going to join me in some time have been given this tough task of talking to you about, how do you bring about peace and chaos, and how do you actually implement change in a merger and acquisition scenario. To put it on record, I may be the first moderator who's going to moderate a session with his eyes getting droopy and trying to keep other guys awake who I'm sure have eaten more than me. When I was a younger man, I really used to like fashion shows, and I used to like models. I still like models. And that was the time when a model called Manpreet Brar won the Miss Universe competition. There was a question asked to her, say something about change. And she said, the only thing constant in life is change. Change is as difficult for a man with a receding hairline like mine, or I don't know, whatever is remaining, to keep what is there intact. Change is as difficult what I experience in the morning when I'm jogging on a treadmill. After half an hour, you're still at the same place. Change is as difficult as making a bunch of workers who I deal with day in and day out, trying to explain to them why you can't give in to each and every of their demands. The human race has survived primarily because of our ability to manage change, our ability to adapt. And because I work in a hospital, I want you to imagine, one of my friends over lunch said, we were just discussing, and, I want you to imagine how a surgeon actually removes a kidney of one individual and implants a kidney of another individual. And to ensure that the body doesn't reject that kidney, you immunocompromise that patient. So you bring down his immunity to such a level that the body will accept that external kidney. Otherwise, the body has got such a lovely mechanism that will immediately reject the kidney. So what do? You actually compromise the patient, and during that point of time, you have to ensure that the patient doesn't catch any other infection. He's so susceptible to infection. That is change. Today in the afternoon, we are supposed to talk to you about many of the things probably which you guys deal day in and day out. You deal with changing human behavior. You deal with the behavior of an employee before the appraisal and after the appraisal. Most of us have this fantastic task of, I'll just share with you one. I just charge-sheeted an employee 2 days ago. And the reason for charge sheet was actually very funny. So this guy, his boss gives him a special increment. He's in the unionized category. He gets his yearly increments as per his salary scale. And his boss feels that I should give him a special increment. So in the committee, he discusses it with us and we say, okay, we'll give you a special increment. And he gets a special increment, which the boss feels is very good. The profile of the guy I'm discussing here is around 27 years old, BCom, he's a clerk, which in my organization falls under the unionized category. The guy is told to accept the letter, sign the acknowledgement. He keeps the letter with him for 2 days. Somewhere at around 10:30 in the night, okay, probably with a lot of support from either a bagpiper or, I don't know, Antiquity Blue or I don't know what, maybe Smirnoff. He writes a message to his boss, who's my manager, accounts and costing, and he says that, "Sir, I wanted to talk to you. I feel like calling you right now. I am not happy with the letter you have given to me. I will not accept the letter. I will not also give you this letter back." Let me see what action the management can take against me. And then, I have my director of finance telling me that, "अरे नील, आपण केवढ्या चांगल्या मनाने त्याला हे स्पेशल इन्क्रीमेंट दिलं होतं आणि तो असा का वागतोय?" Right? We all here are from a function for which psychology as a subject has absolutely no answers for most of our behaviors. As a psychologist and as a guy who does psychotherapy most of the time, sometimes you wonder about, what is it that makes human beings in this way? So while chairmen of companies and finance guys of companies and process leaders of companies decide to say that we'll make 2 plus 3 and we'll make it probably 50, we are grappling with the situation where we say that, 2 plus 3, we really don't know what's going to be. To help me in my endeavor today, I have some of my friends. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Amit Naik. He's the Vice President HRD of Binani Industries. He's a human resource professional with around 23 years of experience, has worked in telecom, retail, name it, and he's worked over there. He's had, a lot of experience in dealing with multicultural issues relating to change. He's worked in training and development. He's got so many degrees. And he's assured me today that he's going to keep me awake. Amit, can I please have you on stage, please? Guys, a big hand. A little bit louder, please. Thank you. The next is another good friend of mine. I've met him many times in my office also. He's known very well, especially among Thanekars, for kindling the passion of HR there in Thane. He's Mr. Alok Shurpurkar, Senior Vice President and Head HR for HDFC Asset Management. Alok has been into HR for a very long time, has worked with organizations like Tata Iron and Steel, Grasim, Crompton Greaves, Cadbury Schweppes, AIG. He has worked in HR, quality management, OD, capability building, communication skills. Alok is such a guy that, he immediately sets up this fantastic link to your heart and, he can converse on any topic. Alok, can I have you on stage, please?
Thank you very much.
Another new friend of mine today, Raman Ahuja. And when I met Raman over lunch over there, I said, "Raman, zyada khana mat. At least we have to stay awake." So Raman said, nahi yaar, my problem is different. I need to eat to stay awake. Raman is the Director HR of Thermo Fisher Scientific, has 17 years of overall experience in FMCG, banking, IT, ITES. He's an engineer and an MBA HR. Has worked for, most of the times for financial institutions, has recently joined Thermo Fisher. and has worked with various capacities in different types of industries. Please, Raman, on the stage, please.
Thank you.
My friend Dhruv Desai works as Senior Vice President and HR Head for Angel Group of Companies. Okay, please don't go on his angel-like looks. I'm sure there's a devil which is deep inside. He's a strategic thinker and expertise in various fields of human resources, leadership, team building, strategic planning. He began his HR career with an urge to learn the profession and began academic grounding after his initial passion for marketing. Okay, so he's one of those guys who shifted over. He works as Senior Vice President for the Angel Group of Companies, and he manages the functions of corporate human resources and training. Guys, a big welcome to Mr. Dhruv Desai. Now I'll go and sit down over there, okay? And my job is very simple. I'm supposed to ask complicated questions to these guys, and they're supposed to answer. Okay, and I've told them that the moment they find any of you guys fall asleep, they're supposed to shout. Right? Okay. Amit, I would actually like to begin with you.
Sure.
Whenever most of the times the decisions to actually merge or take over or restructure organizations come from the top. And though we've all been taught in management that, when you plan a job well, there is always a tendency to execute it well. Do you think that HR actually gets involved, and by your experience, do you think HR actually gets involved in the planning process of the entire change? It could be a merger, it could be an acquisition, it could be hiving off of a business unit, it could be shutting down of a unit. Though I know we come in to do most of the time the dirty jobs at the last moment. But, do you think that organizations today are actually recognizing the ability and the strategy that HR brings onto the table when they take such decisions?
Yeah, I think with my past experience, I would talk with respect to a merger and acquisition case. My answer to your question would be yes and no. I mean, in terms of whether HR gets involved or not. Can't generalize on this statement, but yeah, most organizations I've seen where acquisitions have been happening, HR has played a fair role in terms of the acquisition. It actually all depends on the leadership in that organization, and most of the decisions flow from the top leadership. Yeah, but HR actually needs to work on the pre and during the acquisition and the post-acquisition time, where integration and communication is a very, very important role the HR needs to play. So what I am trying to say here is HR is the function which actually needs to build on the integration team, yeah? so that's to manage the change in a typical acquisition scenario. And the integration team needs to be somebody who is away from their routine jobs. The integration team needs to have an integration manager, and also needs to have people who are experts in project management, things like that. So yes, I mean, some organizations HR gets involved, some organizations it's a directive from the leadership team, this is to be done. So my answer is yes and no to that.
Yeah, Alok, you've had tremendous amount of exposure, especially in the kind of financial services sector that you work in.
Sure.
And this is one sector which also constantly looks at mergers and acquisitions and restructuring most of the times, because these are the products as well as the deliverables of these organizations are highly based on the external environment factors, especially the stock market. What has been your experience?
See, first of all, good afternoon to all. Everybody there? Great. So that's assuring.
Good, good. You learned from me. Good. Keep it up.
Now, I have 2-3 things to ask the audience with your permission.
Sure.
How many of you think Baba Ramdev is a change? How many of you think Baba Ramdev is a change?
He's a change agent.
Change agent. I mean, he brought the change. Right? How many of you think Anna Hazare has brought the change? Look, the impact on society, the news magazine coverage, so much is there, but still one or two hands. Are we numb to change? Have we stopped sensing the change? And this is what BFSI sector faces. The speed is so high that much against our wishes, we fail to recognize that every decision we take, there is going to be a people factor. A couple of months ago, we noticed that gold financing companies have mushroomed in this country. And until RBI issued a whip, they were going almost unstoppable and results were tremendous. And you saw a lot of branches opening up. And one stroke of pen, and what is the impact on those people? After State Bank of India, the maximum mergers and acquisition, based on my information, I would say that has been handled by HDFC Bank. But when leadership, the middle management and the ground level people sing the same song, merger and acquisitions and the change, I'm not just limiting the change process just to merger and acquisition, becomes much more easier. Change process is something where there's a start date, there's no end date to it. In BFSI sector, coming very specific to your question, change is constant, as you rightly said. It is so frequent, so rapid, so fast-paced, and we have all seen now how the change has happened when the ULIP products got stopped, almost stopped, I would say. Nobody stopped it, but almost got irrelevant in the context of insurance. And we know what has the large workforce of insurance has gone through much against the wishes. So coming back, I think it's a very, very challenging space for change. And I will not limit change only to the hiring and firing and merger and acquisition. Every time you try to skill people, a small example, in mutual fund industry where I belong to, the Association of Mutual Fund of India, they used to take a test called MFI certification, has moved to NISM. Now, NISM test is arguably slightly tougher as compared to MFI. Now, everybody has to get recertified. Some people are clearing, some people are not clearing, because every time you attempt a right question, the degree of difficulty increases, like your KBC model. Right? Every time you give the right answer, the difficulty of question. So you don't use lifeline and you'll have tougher question. You use lifeline and you'll have simpler questions.
No, your business is itself KBC, so
yeah.
I mean, I think it's very apt. You're in the business of making crorepati.
So our input is money and our output is money. So we make more money from lesser money. So that's the change for us, and that's constant. If I don't know if I answered you.
Okay. Dhruv, I've worked at the BSE for a long time, and I have, one needs to work with a broking firm or with a stock exchange to realize, how gripping that situation can be. You're dealing with money at all points of time. You're dealing with other people's money. There's huge amount of confidentiality which is involved, and plus there is so much of technological upgradation which is constantly happening, either at the front end, at the back end, coupled with the kind of regulations that SEBI brings in day in and day out, and the various diktats that come from the government. How do you guys actually manage, especially the challenge to manage this across various locations? I can, at one location, though it would seem difficult. I mean, here you have to implement something at every terminal that trades on the exchange. How do you guys actually manage this amount of change? I mean, an HR guy would say you train, but how do you do that?
Sure. The easiest link in the chain is the people process that really comes into play. Now, like Neil said, there are a lot of changes that keep on coming on an ongoing basis. As an industry, stockbroking industry is directly proportional to the economy. And as you see the stock market's everyday volatility, changes that keep on happening, the same change has to be implemented within the organization. So typically our focus has been to processize as many things as possible. So we do use technology to processize all the aspects that needs to change on a daily basis. In fact, if you look at the stock market and the stock broking, predominantly we work on it like it's a very simple analogy to give. We earn our revenues on a daily basis. So we sometimes can be looked upon ourselves as daily wage earners because the stock markets may go up, the stock markets may go down. So we have to be fleet-footed in terms of making all the changes that keep on coming. But to take your question to the next level, if you realize for the last 4.5 years, the stock market as well as the economy has gone through many fluctuations. In fact, what the West would call as a slowdown or a depression, India has seen bigger cuts over the last 4 years. Now, that really affects as a change factor to people who work in the industry. Because over the last 8 years, till 2008, people would join the industry knowing and seeing the fast growth that was possible in the industry. We would grow 33% year on year. 33% year on year. And today, when we grow 10% year on year, that is considered far slower than what it was. A typical star and superstar employees in our industry would typically get an increment of 40, 50% and maybe 200, 300% as bonuses. Today, from that, you come down to, let's say, a 10, 12%. Does that hurt? It does. Moving on for a slowdown for 4 years, does it slow the pain? Not really. The pain still remains. So the industry, the BFSI industry as a whole, has gone through a lot of change. And in the introduction, my co-speakers talk about how sometimes we get numb to change. Change is happening around us. And that is, for many people, is the reality. Where we as HR professionals play our part is not letting that change become numb. Because the easiest thing to do is to let the change that is happening around us, and we all getting acclimatized to it and letting it numb. Because if that happens, then there is no H in HR. There is no human factor in human resources. So as HR professionals, we need to, on an ongoing basis, contribute to making easier life for all our employees so that the change affects them less in a harsher way per se. Hopefully, I've taken a little leeway, Neil, but hopefully I've answered your question there.
Yeah, you have.
Thank you.
Raman, you were with banking for a long time, right? And you have now moved to a very different kind of a business. Can you, just tell us the difference in HR approaches within these two businesses? Because when we were talking just after lunch, you told me that today you see there's a very different ball game altogether. When you were in banking for a very, very long time, and now you moved to a new line of business. So, in what way you think is that HR different in the current line of business that you are in compared to what you were doing earlier?
Thanks for asking that question, Neil, because I was thinking, what do I share with this audience, which already knows practically all the fundas of HR, is as wise as probably I think I am, and knows more than me. What I bring to the table or to a discussion, and I've been telling myself when I was driving here, what do I share with this august audience? Will they go back energized, or this is one more conversation they've heard over a zillion times? And thanks for asking the question, because when I got the invite to be a panel speaker, I had just changed my job. I've been in banking for the last 10 years, and I moved from banking to a very different industry. As you've heard, the name of the company is Thermo Fisher Scientific. We are supposed to be the leaders in serving science, and I'll not get into introducing the company. I had never heard of this organization because my world was all about banking. 10 years in banking, I'm assuming I'm a successful banker, very privileged, very satisfied, very content, and guess I realized I had stopped reinventing myself, which meant I had stopped changing myself, which meant I was sitting on my past laurels, and I was applying the same solution again and again and being successful because I was in the same industry. So I was doing cut, copy, paste for every situation. Now I moved to a very different situation. 10 years in banking, I thought I've reached here of my competency level. I've gone back to zero. I'm going to start again with the new industry. And the word is pretty apt. Trying to create peace out of chaos. Can I be honest? I'm trying to bring peace to myself while I'm in the middle of a chaos. Neil, to answer your question probably in a very tangential manner, to me, the success, what has been with me for the last 17 years, one, the change I urge each one of you. I think the fact is we are in HR business function. Most of us have stopped recognizing ourselves as business managers, and that's where we worry, and that's where we want to get a seat on the table. Fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of us have seat on the table. I've also seen a lot of HR professionals who have seat on the table snoring through some very critical business presentations. I think when we are at that stage, we are neither custodians of change nor we can preach change, because we need to change ourselves first. What are we? Are we a business manager, or are we something outside business? I have come across people who keep waiting for invitation. There is a strategy meet. I will wait for the invite. I think for HR professionals who are true business partners, and we keep talking about being strategic, my simple language is, am I a business manager? And my P&L is people. Can I keep reminding people about that P&L, which I hold very dearly to my heart? The industry I've joined is totally new to me. I'm learning about some of the things Thermo Fisher does create, and I'm just amazed, because a month back my world was all about banking and I felt conquered. Today I don't feel vanquished, but I'm saying, wow, there is so much more to learn. My glass is empty. I'm at peace because it's a chosen change. And I think that's what most of the HR managers need to do. Are you at peace with the process you are going through? Most of us want to be change agents without either being trained how to be a change agent. We are thrown into the fire and somebody tells you, just because you are HR, please go and implement the change. I think a lot of us who claim to be HR professionals need to upskill ourselves. Do we really know how to manage change? Are we trained how to manage change? Or am I using great jargons I've Googled from, and I have templates which I'm going to put across to business, say, do 1, do 2, do 3, I've done the change. I think the biggest connect I have found in my both the jobs, banking and the new job which I'm in, one is, do I understand the song my business manager is singing? I may not know the words, right? But can I appreciate a song which I've never heard? Can I be part of the rhythm? Can I start moving with him? And can my business manager say, oh, he's jiving as well as I am, though he doesn't understand the language as much? I think the appreciation brings a kind of synergy and collaboration. Without getting into details of the new job, I have been in the new job a month now, and I am now dealing with 5 change management processes. Trust me, I don't know about the business. I can't even claim I know about the business. What I'm trying to understand is, where are they coming from? And I realize they are doing postmortems. The company I've joined has grown through acquisitions. There are 5 postmortems I'm involved with. But let me share a fantastic example from BFSI, because everybody seems to be talking BFSI. And I'm privileged I was part of that industry once. We sold a business to our competitor a year back. It meant P&L, it meant people. But I think what went into our success, and I'm giving you an example because these are simple things we sometimes miss doing. I did not wait for an invitation from my CEO. There was a discussion, I overheard that business is going to be sold. I shamelessly walked up to my business CEO and said, where was I when you were discussing sale of a business? Did you miss me? Or it was intentional, non-intentional? So I pushed myself inside. Guess what? He had no other choice but to engage me. And I think sometimes as HR professionals, my own experience, I'm not generalizing it, I think we are waiting for an invite when it comes to change management. As Alok, Dhruv, Amit has said, and as Neil has said, change is constantly happening around me. I may choose to ignore some, I may choose to participate in some. The one I choose to participate are my areas of strength. The one I choose to ignore because maybe I don't have bandwidth. To me, I think it doesn't matter which industry you are. It matters what's the DNA you are carrying. Are you I'll not use the word, but let me use it, are you a shameless HR professional who will say, I am here to make a difference? I don't care what you think. I want to sit, I want to add value, and it's not about getting a seat on the table. It's about making an impact on your bottom line. I have a people P&L. How can you forget about the people P&L? And can I be shamelessly honest to Neil and to all of you? Most of my successful change management initiatives have been where I had proposed some of the people initiative, even 3 months before, the change discussion were supposed to start. We've had successful hive-off of a business. One of the companies we've had not a single employee relation complaint, not a single complaint or not a single media hype that this business has been sold, people are unhappy, they were not treated right. Because we were in there 3 months before business started preparing their plans. Now we can't be lucky all the time. Sometimes the changes are pushed through the top. We work for strong multinational company, whether Indian multinational or European or American multinational. They've done an acquisition globally. All you do is execute, right? Where is your participation? So you need to be listening. And I think I've learned over the last 17 years, at least I was a very bad listener to business. And when I stopped talking, I started listening. When I started listening, I was more prepared. I could get the winds of change in my ear. And I went to team and said, guys, this is likely to happen. Are we prepared to facilitate business go through the change process? And the answer, 9 out of 10 times, was no. We don't know how to manage change. And we are custodians of change. It's a big answer, but the fact is, I don't see any difficulty or issues with changing industry. I think it's about the mindset. What are you as HR professional? We keep talking about the feeling and the caring piece, but I think you truly care for people when you truly care for business. There is no point caring for people when you sink a business because you'll sink the ship. Right? So it's a different side. I've been a salesman many years back, so probably that's the salesman talking to you. But all I say is own the P&L. Your P&L is people. Keep showing to your managers, are you missing this P&L? Are you missing this P&L? I'm not at all ashamed of when I go to my CEOs and say, I want to be part of this business review. I want to be part of business review. He'll say, you don't need to be. I say, I need to be because I want to contribute. I think somewhere we should stop waiting for invitation. We have not reached a level where we will be invited. We are at a level where we are needed. So let's segregate those two levels. Am I needed or am I being invited? So I thought I'll share this with you, which will wake all of you. And I have an advice from one of the dear colleague in the audience, and he said, ensure that your voice is loud enough that we are awake. So this is to wake you up and to shake you up. We don't wear the tiara of change management. We are part of the process.
Yeah. Alok, you have dealt with mentoring a lot of young people. And a couple of people who work with me speak very highly about you, especially for your mentoring capabilities. My experience as I began my career as an operations guy and then moved into HR after my engineering. My understanding is that, most of the times when an HR, most of the young people here will support me on this. When he joins the organization, his intentions are very good. He wants to bring about a lot of change. He wants to probably make things for better. His objective is to do better things, to make the organization a better place to work in, etc. Majority of the times you see that these young people lose their way. The so-called change agent succumbs and becomes as dirty as the muck is which he's supposed to clean. Where do you think that HR professionals, most of the times you hear that, अरे जब वो आया था तो ठीक था, अच्छा था, अभी तो यार कुछ नहीं कर रहा है. So where do you think that HR people actually go wrong when they manage change? And what is your advice to especially the young people here in the audience who are probably mid-managers or junior managers? I mean, because they will be ultimately the change agents for the next generation. So what would be your advice to them?
See, I have been in executive coaching for quite some time now, and one thing I have learned that whose need is this to change, to improve, to keep shining? Is this boss's agenda or his own agenda? And I think one-line definition for human resource development is the alignment of objective individual and organization. If we are people champion, we cannot let our own people, I'm talking now slightly compartmentalized HR people, because we do the least HR for HR. We do HR for organization, we don't do HR for ourselves and our people. So mining, refining, defining, and shining if we follow these 4 steps, I think we will have jewels in our organization. The key here is that as a mentor, as a coach, as a guide, friend, and philosopher to each and every individual, and I believe your question is more from HR perspective,
yes.
for HR people.
Yes.
I think we need to enable that feeling that it is his agenda, because that's where the leadership fails. That if a boy does well, if tomorrow, how many of us guarantee, boss, you work with me for 5 years and I will see to it that you become AVP in some other organization if you're not in my organization. I guarantee you 10 years down the road, you will become HR head. How many of you guarantee that success? We as a functional head has tremendous pressure to act every time, either the colleague.
So, sorry to interrupt over here, but then, practically can you tell us that we always talk about mentoring, and there have been theories, but practically how would you mentor someone? I mean, what is the level of patience that you would show with somebody who's probably, you think has got the potential, is not performing? Or you think that, when you say that, okay, I'll guarantee you that in 5 years, you will be an AVP, but how do you actually practically do it? I mean, if you can tell us more on practicality, that how do you actually make him go through that hurdles and through that steeplechase to actually be there?
See, the question is he mentoring ready? First of all, if he is not mentoring ready, we must ask a question: is it in his interest, in my interest, to enable him to get ready for mentoring? And once a coachee or a mentee is ready, I think the job is half done. Every time he is aligned to your objective, he will give you outstanding productivity. Is he committed to, or he is going by 9 to 5:30? The question is, how do we enable and inculcate that, boss, if you don't do these things, you will miss. Human behavior is, as you all know, very complex. We all know smoking is injurious to health, but it will not hurt me, it will hurt everybody else. And this is true for development, this is true for good, bad, ugly habits. And our challenge is, to whatever little number of people we have to mentor, we have to see to that they have that burning desire which is kept alive. Teacher teaches all the class, some succeed, some fail. Not because teacher was great, but student was also equally great, who you chose to learn. Now our challenge is that how do we keep that fire alive? And that, I think, is every case to case. There is no uniform formula, otherwise one training agency would have taught all the people across the world.
Okay. Amit, going back to M&A, when such an exercise happens, on the people's side, there is a lot of uncertainty, right? One of the speakers in the morning said it's like marriage, there's a lot of uncertainty. You really don't know whether it's going to work. Most of your key people are not aware what's their role going to be. How do you actually manage this uncertainty? Because you currently work for an organization which has acquired some organizations. How do you deal with uncertainty on both the sides? How do you ensure that you don't lose the key people who are there on the other side, who are actually running the business which you are acquired for?
Yeah, I mean, as Alok also mentioned, there are no set formulas for this. But yeah, the HR role starts at least 3 to 4 months before the integration process actually takes off, or even the thought of taking over an organization takes off. Two things. One is definitely HR needs to identify the critical employee mass, both from the company which is acquiring and the other company which is being acquired, from both the sides. Because what most of the time mergers and acquisitions, because it's a vested interest by investment bankers to close the deal as quickly as possible. Yeah, but the human aspect and the cultural differences, these are two areas which normally top leadership also tend to miss out on. So as a HR person, I think what we did in the past was, even when the thought came of taking over an organization, as I mentioned earlier, there was an integration team formed. The The job of this team was to first identify critical people on both the sides. That was based on certain assessments, different methods. And then assign that task to the team to actually take these critical people through the entire process of explaining why this is happening. I mean, is the merger really necessary? Or is there any other better alternative rather than taking over an organization? Is there a possibility of certain stock options being taken over by this company, something like that? But if merger is the only solution, I think identifying critical talent is definitely important. But then, how are you going to communicate it to the others who possibly are not the survivors? There will be a lot many layoffs. There will be a lot many job losses. So it's better to open up communication at least 3-4 months in advance and be as honest as possible in your communication. There doesn't make any sense to hide anything, because the more clear and transparent the communication, the better it is for the employees and the organization. So no formulas to find out how, but we'll have to identify people and take it forward.
Okay. Dhruv, on a very different platform altogether. You again deal with a business which is highly, I would say, recession savvy. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with what happens when the stock markets are down? I mean, what happens when volumes are down? I mean, how do you guys deal with it? I mean, do you temp staff? Do you actually tell people to go?
See, the fast-moving financial services business, if I may call it that, has gone through certain pains in the recent past. Now, typically, if we look at 2008, post-Lehman Brothers, overnight, I think the market turnover as well as our revenues dropped by 50% odd, as an example. Now, in such a scenario, the first thing you look at is cost-cutting, because that is what you can do. And in our kind of a business, about 70 to 80% of the cost is people cost. So in our kind of scenario, the easiest decision to make was, in terms of change process, was that we can look at people cost, and that could actually save us for a rainy day. It's as simple as that. But the change philosophy that we really used wasn't really about either this or that, but and. So we really looked at how we can go through this situation without affecting our employer branding. Because once you actually lay off, retrench people, getting people back becomes more difficult. Once you have a brand in the market that X organization retrenches people, do you think good or great talent will want to work for the organization? Very rarely. So our approach at that moment in time was to bite the bullet and let be as is. In fact, we were one of the few organizations which did not do layoffs or cutbacks at that moment in time. The good thing about fast-moving financial services industry, if I may call it that, is that the people who work in this industry can work in any other financial services industry or financially related or non-physical product business. So if you have a lot of salespeople, if the industry is not doing well, they tend to migrate. So one of the benefits of attrition is that if your attrition rates in certain roles, such as, let's say, sales, is decent enough, decently bad enough, then you do not necessarily have to lay off people because they migrate from X industry to Y industry, which tends to do better. Earlier in the question I said, stock market is the barometer of the economy. So when Lehman Brothers collapsed and the BFSI industry went through a slump, the Main Street wasn't doing bad. The other industries were still growing at a decent pace. So those people got absorbed. The quick decision was, we cut staff in a month or two. The tough decision, which was the and, was not to touch anything, but the attrition rate itself may take care of it over a 6-month period. So it was good learning for us, because again in November 2009, the markets again slowed down, which is about a year and a half now. Since then, the Dalal Street has been doing poorly because of the no decision in the economy, but that learning again helped us from the previous downturn. And we have never had to take those difficult changes. But the process is now clear in our mind that sometimes we need to stretch it out so that it doesn't affect our brand. But at the same time, before I wrap it up, the focus and the emphasis is on the talent. So the top 15% of our staff in terms of productivity and performance are separated out from the chef and focused on throughout. So that percentage of our staff does not even look at migrating from the industry. Because even if you go by the 80-20 rule, these are the folks that actually hold the organization and the industries up to where it is. Thank you.
Well, friends, I have been able to ask some pertinent questions to my colleagues over here. I would now leave it open to you if you have any particular questions. Yes, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to ask the panelists, in your experience, can you please give me an example of one of the most challenging change scenarios that you all have come across and how you all dealt with it?
You're asking me?
Yeah, it's a common question to
Common
the panelists.
question.
Okay, I'll show you the change phenomena just now in the next 10 seconds. How many of you think you need a mentor? So more than half of the population doesn't need a mentor, right? Safely we can assume 60-65%. This is what happened with most of us. We say we don't need help, we don't need mentor, and we delay it unless we reach a critical situation and get into a role where we really need somebody. And we have missed a huge opportunity of 10, 15, 20 years of creating a body of knowledge for ourselves. And that's the time where small failure could really have fatal impact on your career. Because we think we can help ourselves. And organization phenomena is no more different than this. Every person who is driving thinks he can drive it safely and doesn't borrow the help from people, doesn't ask for help, doesn't need support. And as many research have shown, that 90 to 95% of change processes fail to deliver the desired outcome. And that's where the meticulous planning, not only from HR front, from many other dimensions is required. And most of the change processes which have succeeded have not been led by massive monetary investment. They've been set right only because of culture or the people driving it. That's what I would say.
In fact, if I may add here, your specific question was about difficulty. Change, when do you look at change typically? When you are in a crisis situation. So you only look at change, a simple example would be, when would you like to go to a dentist? Only when you are in pain. That is typically the reaction most organizations and all of us have, that when you're out of a comfort zone, that is when we look at change, or vice versa for that matter. So depending on each organization's maturity continuum or where they are, change occurs. The easiest aspect to handle change is to be proactive towards it. That is as simple as it sounds. But you will typically change when the scenario is difficult, or if there is a crisis situation, you tend to change faster. I gave 2 examples of economic downturn, and those changes were possible. Our organization became more productive after that than before. Before 2008, Angel was one of the top 20 broking houses in the country. After 2 downturns, today we are the #1 retail broking house in the country. In fact, change or crisis, if you want to look at it, is a big opportunity to change the whole DNA of the organization or as well as the individual to get even better. That is my opinion.
I'll give you an example of something which I am grappling in currently. We are a 60-year-old hospital. A huge chunk of our staff is in the age group around 48 to 55. And because we have a culture called as Parivar culture, where we actually prompt people to recruit their children. So we give first preference to the children. My hospital also employs everyone, so everybody is on payroll. Absolutely everybody is on payroll. The problem that we are facing is a typical generation problem. The earlier generation believes that the hospital is like a home, believes in giving everything to the hospital, is highly cultural. In our hospital, nobody takes tips. Okay? And they are happy doing that. We are having a big challenge in putting the youngsters onto this regimen. There are constant issues of, either people trying to take money or people doing insubordination to their superiors. And most of the times, the senior management says, this used to not happen earlier. So the big challenge that we are facing today is how do we actually bring the same cultural values in this generation. And it's not only limited to the hospital. I'm sure everyone in this country is probably thinking that how do we bring about the same values in our children which we had. Because especially when you're in a business, it could any service business, respect to the customer, or when it comes to us, respect to the patient, meeting the patient requirements as long as it's ethical and it's medically demanding becomes the most important thing. While we find it very difficult to put it in the head of the youngsters. That is the biggest challenge that we are facing today. Change in attitude. Yeah, any further questions? Yes, ma'am.
How can we institutionalize coaching as a process in an organization?
Asking me?
I think Alok is the best.
Institutionalized coaching.
How can we institutionalize coaching as a process in an organization?
So my personal opinion is that we can talk to employees about coaching. We can tell there's a, infrastructure support and qualified coaches are available. But I'm personally against forcing somebody to go through coaching. At the most, senior can have a conversation that if, for example, I was coaching a person in Delhi and she was moving from a role to a head of a function role. Now she felt the need to do a transition. Organization supported. Similarly, I think we have to make people aware. It should be more voluntary because otherwise you give template, process, call, rigor, schedule. Will not benefit. Let it go viral in organization, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, let it go viral in organization rather than we forcing it. Because whose agenda is to get coached? Yours or the employee's agenda?
Just to clarify a bit more on what I was intending to ask, is that we've seen, I run a consulting firm, and we've seen that while people would love to be coached, when we ask the bosses or the cross-functional heads to coach, they kind of put it as one of the things that they have to do by the end of the quarter. They don't take it upon themselves that coaching is something that they want to do. So one is what the coachee has to take the responsibility. How do we ensure that the coach also takes it as part of his job responsibility?
See, coaching in its true sense, it's not the established practice that seniors coach juniors. That can be a mentoring.
Anyone.
Okay, coaching is better that the person is having a distance of clarity. Because I am coaching somebody whom when the organization-wide performance review happens, he is one of the subject being discussed. So it's better to have the sanctity of process that either you create coaches who are completely different line of business and they then volunteer and practice it. Otherwise, you hire people who are qualified coaches. Coaching in its purest sense I'm talking about. If you're saying boss subordinate, senior, junior, creating it, then it's a hybrid of mentoring and coaching. But then I think many seniors will always do it. But then there's no rigorous process in terms of the process of coaching. And then there's no 3 months, 5 months assignment period where the dilemmas are getting resolved. So coachee also has to be coaching ready, one side, and also then coach has to volunteer because finally in the coaching they say the coach's agenda is my agenda. I have no personal agenda, right? So therefore, but anyway, organizations are infusing a lot of money, and most of the organizations, because coaching is something which is you are taking senior middle management to senior management. It's not at the middle to junior. It's mostly mentoring. Because people are also not evolved in terms of experience and expertise and that kind of intellect to get those dilemmas resolved. So coaching is still practiced, in the business coaching, I would say, at a senior level.
I'm tempted to add to what Alok said. I've gone through a coaching program, certified as a coach, HRS coach. I think without getting into a development need analysis of any organization, as HR professional, we need to understand what is my priority as business. We confuse between HR priorities and business priorities. Okay, so what is my priority as business? Do I have a strong succession plan? Do I have great leaders? If my CEO, God forbid, is run down by, do I have a replacement? I think those analysis, again, I'm saying as a business manager and not as an HR manager, because for an HR manager, priority is hiring, development, training, but for the CEO, the priority could be different. So if I know my CEO's priority, then define it as the HR tools I have. As Alok said, most of the time, these are templated toolkits. We keep doing tick mark, following up, sending Excel sheet, chaser, and then saying, oh, the mentoring was a disaster. I've worked for great organization to find out mentoring happens to be a disaster because we have forced it. It's an HR agenda. And I think what I've heard Alok saying is, what is your organization agenda? Are you doing coaching for fad, or you really need it? If you don't need it, why touch it? If you need it, are you training your people? And I think the best way to coach is for each one of us to start imbibing certain qualities as a coach. And the biggest quality of a coach, and I'm still in a learning process, is start listening more. What I've learned over a period of last couple of years, from being a solution provider, as a coach, I have been a person who's getting solution from the guy who got the problem to me. I think we have to start from that level. Is that the conversations we encourage as HR professionals? Or are we giving solutions to our business managers? Are we making them more numb because we are the ones who hold all the solutions? Or are we helping them become coach? I'm not advising training programs to become coaches. I think what I'm suggesting is each one of us need to look at what are the behaviors coaches display. Whether you look at the Euro 2012, what the behaviors coaches have displayed, can we start talking about it as conversation? Can we start energizing our CEOs to say, are you creating leaders? One of the way to create leader is mentor and coach. Would you be interested in that process? I think those informal, strong conversations have been fairly successful. Wherever I would want to, or my experience is that wherever I've gone, with a flag, oh, it's an HR agenda, let's drive it. US has sent this to me, or London has sent this to me, or Frankfurt has sent this to me, or Singapore, whichever regional hubs we have. It's not succeeded. So you really need to understand what is your CEO's agenda.
I would like to dig a little bit deeper into this. I think, most of the times when I was on the other side of the table of HR as an operations guy, the biggest problem I had, I'm very sorry to say this, that most of the people in organizations find HR unapproachable. They feel that HR is far away from reality. They feel that, I'm not saying that we are unapproachable. Okay? And many a times, and this becomes extremely, extremely important, like Ms. Dumasia said in the morning, when you're running an organization which has got workforce. So I think the first step towards anything of this is, you should be approachable. People should start coming and at least talking to you. Then comes the mentoring, coaching, developing, everything, etc. It's very important for me. I work in an organization, I've worked with early organizations where I have a union. Okay. And it becomes very important for me that somebody comes and tells me that this is a problem that is going to happen probably in 2 days' time. I'm sure many of you have dealt with IR over here, and IR is a very, very different role play and game compared to, HR. So that is where your approachability, your ability to talk to workers, your ability to actually understand their problem, and, to be sensitive. I think somewhere down the line, we have to remember that ours is the only function which has got the word human attached to it. Think about this. That the function we are in is the only function which has got the word human attached to it. I think that if human resource professionals start believing in this, I'm sure everything else is only a matter of time and it will all fall in place. Any further questions? Okay. Okay, friends, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for staying awake. God bless.
Okay, thank you to our panel and to Neil for moderating that discussion. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, are you awake? That was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah, interesting. All right, so we're going to give you coffee now to make sure that you're wide awake for our two final speakers. All right, so we're going to take a break. It's now, let me see, 3:25. Please be back in your seats, ready to go at 3:45. All right? Thank you. All right, how many of you think you've been to better events? Oh, are you just being nice to me? Are you? All right, now, look, this is the thing. Vikas said this morning that this event is only going to be as good as you make it. If you're on the edge of your seat and drawing this towards you, you are going to get way more value than you bargained for. If you listen to the speakers, the panelists, the moderators, they have such amazing things to say. And we have two very extraordinary speakers coming up. And I want to make sure you're awake, you're alive, you're alert, that you are here for what is possible. So, I want you to all to stand up. That's it. Stand up. Now, I know some of you are senior professionals in your organization. I know some of you are CEOs. Some of you have been in business for 30, 40 years. And you're very professional. But we're going to do something a little unprofessional. That's just the way I like it. All right? So, we're going to stretch. We're going to make sure you've got some energy, you're alive, and you don't fall asleep on two great speakers. All right? So, if you can put your hands up in the air and stretch, touch that ceiling as high as you can. All right? And then bring it all the way down. All the way down. Come on, I know some of you haven't used these muscles in a long time. All the way down. All right? And then back up. And back up. And then down. That's it, as far as you can go. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Come on, I know you're a leader, but that's cheating. All right, ready? And then the other way. All right, and then back up, and then down. And let's just move those shoulders a little bit. All right, good. Now, you feel a little more energized? I can't hear you! Are you awake? I can't hear you! Are you awake?
Yes!
Okay, there are some HR professionals in the building. Great. Thank you.